It has been 8 years since the Syrian civil war started, and still there are over 3.5 million Syrian refugees in Turkey alone. Many of them lost everything back home and want to stay in Turkey and the other countries where they have built their new lives. Understanding how and where refugees integrate with locals in their host society is therefore extremely important. Where and how are the important social connections between refugees and locals made? How do they find jobs? What role does urban segregation play? Can we predict if and where tensions between refugees and locals are likely to grow? What about the effect on economics or on politics? To answer these questions, we need data that goes beyond the very limited data on refugees that's currently available. Interviews and questionnaires are too sparse and infrequent to provide enough detail, while traditional census simply doesn't cover most refugee statistics. That's why at MIT we do it differently. We have collaborated with refugee organizations and local universities to be able to use the mobile phone metadata of hundreds of thousands of refugee and local citizens to measure integration in a way that's ubiquitous, low cost, real time, and privacy preserving. So how do we do this? First, we pre-process the data in a number of ways to make sure every user's privacy is protected. Second, we're able to infer social integration simply by looking at the amount of connections that are made between individual refugees and locals. Using the location of the closest cell phone tower, we're able to track hourly movement from one cell tower to the next, and thus we can adapt measures originally created to measure spatial integration in census to our data. Finally, we are able to infer users' regularity in commute patterns to predict who is or isn't employed on a daily basis. These powerful statistics provide us with the first fine-grained perspective on refugee integration at the regional and even the neighborhood level. And what makes the use of mobile phone data even more compelling is the fact that we can determine each of these statistics for every individual in our data set. This allows us to see how different types of integration are related. We see, for example, that social and spatial integration are strongly correlated in Istanbul, while these same measures seem to be completely unrelated in the southeast of the country, close to the Syrian border. Interestingly, the reverse is true for the relationship between spatial integration and employment, for which we measure a strong correlation in the southeast, but not in Istanbul. These type of analysis provide important insights in the mechanisms behind refugee integration, but were previously not accessible when using aggregated statistics like census. We can suddenly answer questions like whether urban segregation also harms a refugee's potential for finding a job or to build social capital. Unfortunately, the Syrian refugee crisis isn't the only one. An unprecedented 68 million people around the world have been forced from home. We started with Syrian refugees in Turkey, but we hope to expand our efforts and our toolset to refugee crisis elsewhere. We at MIT Connection Science envision a world in which initiatives and policies that have the potential to change the lives of millions around the world can be validated and tested directly, in which we can constantly optimize and improve ideas through good feedback. From large nationwide policies to small neighborhood-level initiatives that bring refugees and locals closer together, and with measures that are real-time, low-cost, ubiquitous, and privacy-preserving. I would be very happy to discuss and tell you more when you stop by my booth in the back over there. Thanks a lot.